about your alter egos just it makes me question, are you planning on using them in your future albums that we've talked about? Are they going to make an appearance?
That's a good question. I feel definitely Lillith and Lucy sort of came about after Dorian Platinum did, so it's hard to say because the concepts, at least for the albums to come, were definitely created really without any of these characters in mind, but I've taken such a liking to all of them that I really don't want to part ways with them. Like it makes me sad to think of like leaving them behind in the Inferno. So my mind, I've definitely been thinking about ways to reintroduce them. I mean, obviously in the story, for the story to continue, Dorian Platinum and Andrew are one and the same. In the Inferno, for the most part, they're two separate entities and they are sort of their own distinct characters, but at least for visual representation, by the time the Inferno album is finished and done with, we can assume that Dorian and Andrew are occupying like the same body. So I think to move forward, obviously Dorian has to be present. I don't know how prominent he will take in the role in the stories to come. But that kind of all depends, he might take a back seat for some songs or some elements of the story and then come out in others, or there may be references to it, to him at least. But I mean, he's coming along for the ride, so he will definitely be there, whether it's super obvious or not. And then for Lillith and Lucy, I really do love them, and I like the idea that even though Andrew has escaped the Inferno, it's not the last time that he's gonna have to deal with this, because after all, he does have Dorian now with him, so he does have that connection to the Inferno. So that door is always there, but at the same time, without revealing too much of what the next albums are going to be, it's definitely not all going to be Inferno focused or even like related to the Inferno at all. So it's kind of, I have to figure out a way, if I were to introduce them, on how to make it fit the context of the album, because once Andrew is out of the Inferno, he has a whole world to explore that we don't even know anything about. We don't know what world he's entering. We don't know what it looks like. We don't know what time he's even in. We don't know anything about that. So it's all up in the air, but I love the characters from this album so far. And there might even be more characters. I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like, because you have this grand world in the and we talked about the characters, or who knows what's going on, and what the future might look like. But do you think there's a possibility that you could ever make an album that isn't story-based, or maybe not based on this story? But I would ask, do you think you would ever write something that isn't story-based? It seems like a game.
I think at the root of any song I make, there's always going to be some element of the story. It's just how I create things. I do definitely think, and I'm open to making a whole body of work that isn't set around a whole plot. But that being said, I do feel, I can't speak for sure about the future, but I mean, just the way I write songs now, even if two songs have nothing to do with each other, they do live in their own world themselves, because that's just how I write. I like writing about certain scenarios, certain settings, I like thinking through the viewpoint of different characters and sort of living out, even if it's just in the scope of one song, just living out their existence and their truth for the duration of that song. So it's kind of like yes or no. Things can definitely feel less story oriented, but I think there will always be an element of a story and of a world, even if it's just contained to a 3-minute song.
Yeah, well, I definitely look forward to seeing how these characters play out in the future, and also that's really interesting.
Yes,
See,
we will see.
We'll see. Okay, let's talk about like this album, this current moment a little bit. I think we've talked enough about the future. Let's get down to it. So, you have this album, and you've been working on it for so long. Do you think you'll tour with this album?
I really want to. I have been performing so far. It's very strange because I released my first album the Friday before everything locked down. I remember it so well because it was a Friday the 13th, and I was so proud to release my first album on Friday the 13th, and then it's like the whole world locked down. So I had essentially waited those 2 years that Los Angeles was basically on lockdown to start performing songs from that album, which by the time that came, I felt the urge to move on to bigger and better things, or just more things that are current to me. So while that has been really fun and I've had like such great experiences performing those songs, I, during the creation of this album, have just been so excited to perform them live. Like right now, my live sets are very unique to their own thing. I don't try to recreate what's on Spotify or what's on the CD or what's on the recorded version. I want the live version to feel like its own experience. I think that's one of the coolest things about seeing a band live, is to see how different things sound live. And I have really just like been fantasizing about how the songs from this album are going to translate live, and you know, how they're going to be received. So I definitely want to, for sure.
Yeah, that's really exciting, especially going from having released the last album to a lockdown. And this is the first time, hopefully, fingers crossed, that there won't be some massive world shutting down and where you can't go perform these songs without taking live.
Yeah, I hope not.
So that's exciting.
Yeah.